Right. Well, Lewis, the Big Friendly Viking. Let's begin. So, hello, welcome. Lewis, welcome, and thank you for doing this podcast with me. You've been doing the carnivore now for 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Um, Tell us about it.
Yeah, I've done carnivore for 6 months now, so predominantly eating meat and eggs. Um, I found out about it through Jordan Peterson a while back and his daughter Michaela, who both do the lion diet, where I think all they eat is beef pretty much. I just eat steak um, all day, every day. So I thought I'm going to, well, actually, I've ended up coming across Ken Berry, MD, and then started following him. And I saw a lot of very interesting information about the results of carnivore and how he calls it the proper human diet. So I started following that, and I thought I'm going to give it a go for a month and see what happens. And after a month, I mean, well, even just after a week, I stopped snoring and was sleeping better. And then after 2 weeks, I was waking up and my anxiety was reduced dramatically. And I thought I'm quite liking this. I'm going to keep going. And then like 6 months later, I mean, I've lost 5 stone. So for Americans, I think that's around 70 pounds, something like that. I think I'm not great with. I think it's about 70 pounds, something like that. I'm fluctuating. So at the moment, I've hit this plateau where I'm stuck at 17 and a half. But I've realised, okay, so now I'm at this plateau, I need to start working out. So I've started lifting and doing a bit of cardio, and also fasting. I've introduced fasting into it. So sometimes I fast. Okay. Generally, I fast on an average of 17 hours, but twice a week I'll do a 24-hour fast. And once a month, I'll do a prolonged fast where I won't eat anything for about 48 hours. But I have recently come across water fasting, where people are fasting for a good 96 hours with just drinking water. So I'm going to start experimenting with that as well, because apparently it's extremely good for your gut. And from what I've read into it, I'm no scientist, so I'm going to explain this as best as I can. But what I've read is essentially when you fast for that long, your body believes it's dying, so it fights to repair. So what it does is it gets rid of all these dead and dying cells and replaces them with fresh live cells. And that's how your gut basically reboots and shrinks. And it's just a healthy way of I guess it's healthy for weight loss. It's also healthy for the mind, because when you fast every so often, the mind, you're draining it of all the shit that is in your body, the leftover toxins, whether that's physically in your gut or if it's upstairs. So I'm loving the carnivore diet personally, and I don't see myself changing anytime soon. I've considered switching to keto at times and having some mushrooms and some greens with it, but what I've seen so far, I don't need it. And I don't think you do need it. But the thing is with the carnivore diet, it's only been mainstream now for such a short amount of time. We don't really know the long-term effects. I don't think anyone can say, oh, it's going to kill you or it's going to create longevity for life. But I'm just living in the now, and I know it's working for me. And it's the only diet I've ever had that has worked for me physically and mentally. So I'm sticking with it.
Okay. So I've got a couple of questions for you. What's your height?
I think I'm 5'10" or 5'11". I haven't measured myself in a few years, so I'm not sure, but I think I'm about 5'10", maybe 5'11".
Because when I started to change my diet, which wasn't carnivore to begin with, I'm 5'10" and a half, just over. Very important, just over the 5'10" and a half.
Yeah.
And I was about 18 and a half stone when I started. I'm now about 13 and a quarter, 13 and a half, something like that. I've gone down as low as 12 and a half, but I'm putting more muscle on now.
Nice.
So how heavy were you? Because you said you've gone down to 17 stone, but how heavy were you to begin with? You
Yeah,
said
so
an
my
extra
heaviest
70
that
pounds.
I
What's that
know
in
of was
stones?
it's about 22 and a half stone. I was 22 and a half, and that was in August when I started doing the diet. You're not supposed to weigh yourself at your heaviest, really. That's what a lot of people say. But I
No, it
did. And
doesn't
I sort of,
matter.
yeah, it doesn't really matter, but some people don't choose not to. I chose to, and I saw I was 22 and a half stone. And then after 1 month, I think, was it 2 weeks? 2 weeks to 4 weeks, I lost a stone and a half. And I was eating as much meat as I wanted. So I was eating meat all day, constantly. And I wasn't
Sure.
fasting or anything. I thought, I'm not going to be really strict with it. All I'm going to eat is meat and eggs. So I just eat that. And working in security,
So
it's unsociable hours. So I'd basically cook a
what
load of
happened
pork
there?
steak, a load of beef, and put it in a container. And take that to wherever I was working at the time and basically just eat that throughout the day just to suppress hunger. So I was 22 and a half, and yeah, I'm now 17 and a half.
So the query for me is, were you type 2 diabetic? Which is quite probable. I mean, like by the time you put that much weight on, the chances are that you are type 2 diabetic. But for how long? I mean, how long have you been that weight?
Well, this is the funny thing because I had surgery last January. January last year, I had to go in for surgery. I had an abscess. And I had really bad fever, and I suspected I was diabetic. And I went to the hospital, and they did some tests, and they said I wasn't diabetic. And I also suspected I had a thyroid problem because my mum does, and I think her mum, it's genetic thyroid issues. And I suspected I had that as well because of how tired I'd get and how physically and mentally drained I'd get from basically doing nothing. Um, and they did some tests on me at the hospital, and they said I didn't have diabetes and I didn't have a thyroid issue, but they said they'd need to be further tests. So they said I didn't, but I could very well have had it. I'm not sure. The reason I was so big was because, well, I was an unhealthy eater and I was a heavy drinker. I used to drink between either 10 beers or a bottle of whiskey every day. I had a really bad drinking problem for a good few years, and then I packed that in and quit completely for a while. I do drink sometimes now, so I don't know if I'm an alcoholic. I can't. I think it's such a broad term, and addiction is something we don't fully understand. So I don't know if I'm a highly functioning alcoholic or I was just a heavy drinker. But I guess that's a story of its own. But that's the reason I was so big, was because I drank so much and because I would just eat shit food. I'd eat pizzas and burgers and a lot of bread. And then once I went carnivore, just from not eating bread for a couple of weeks, just the difference I felt
Sure,
mentally, mainly,
sure.
not just physically. I think eating bread, well, modern bread from supermarkets is stupid. I mean, if you read the ingredients on those things, that's not bread. Real bread, if you keep that aside for a couple of days, it will go green, it will just mold. But this supermarket bread, it can last like a week or two if you keep it in the fridge. So that kind of says, well, all those
Ah,
preservatives, that's
loads of
not
them.
normal food. We're not supposed to be eating that. But yeah, I was a big guy eating a lot of bread and just a lot of shit food, and then
But you know,
eating meat, and it's just floating away. And even though I'm plateauing at 17 and a half, I'm still losing body fat. So I'm losing the fat on my stomach and on my body, and I'm getting smaller, but I'm still staying the same weight. So that's very interesting.
well, there could be a whole lot of reasons for that. But just talking about the bread for a minute, the Egyptians, they were the greatest farmers 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. And they supplied most of the Roman Empire with their wheat, sort of grass, like grass seeds, which had been turned into barley and
Yeah.
wheat, I suppose. I don't know if there was something else, but they've done testing on about 150, 152 mummies, and they've used scanning just to sort of look inside them without breaking up the body. And what it shows is that they were all atherosclerotic. They all had blockages in their heart, in their arteries, purely from eating the bread, eating the flour.
Yeah,
Yeah. So whether you've got preservatives or not, if you rely on bread as a staple diet,
interesting.
it will, damage you sooner or later.
That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
And as far as the Egyptians were concerned, they were all dying around 35 to 45. The workers died earlier than the rich guys. So like the ones who had the more expensive sarcophagus,
Yeah.
they lived to about 45. Whereas the cheaper ones, cheap sarcophagus, they are the ones who only survive to around 35. So like averages.
And is that
But
because
it
slave
does show.
workers were put strictly given bread as to eat and bread and water? Is that why? You say like the workers and the slaves would die younger. Is that because their diet they were basically forced to eat predominantly bread and wheat?
Well, I don't know if they were slaves. They probably were not slaves because they were in a sarcophagus. Yeah.
Of course, yeah,
But they were probably sort of like less wealthy, more wealthy. And it was the staple diet. And I don't know whether they ate any meat. Um, but that's what we know. I mean, we don't really know that much. We know that it was a staple diet, and we know that they've died early, and we know that they got damaged. We don't really know that much more. I mean,
right.
maybe some other people might. I don't. Um, but anyway, I think the important thing to take away from here is they rely too much on the grass seeds
Yeah,
for the staple diet, and it doesn't go with us. Didn't go with them. A lot of people talk about spelt bread, like the Romans did spelt bread. It's a different sort of wheat. I'm not sure whether that is a valid argument or not,
yeah,
because I think all wheat is all, anything that is grass seed, um, whatever the variety, they all have a lot of gluten.
yeah.
So
I think
anyway,
gluten. It's interesting. I think our bodies aren't designed to actually consume gluten excessively, or maybe not at all. I speak, when I talk about things like this, I speak purely based on hypothesis. I don't speak as an expert because I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist. I'm just going by what I read and what's happening with my body.
sure.
So I feel that gluten and dairy is something we're not supposed to consume, I think. My skin's become the best it's been in years since going carnivore. However, I've learned whenever I have milk or if I have cream or if I have cheese, my skin starts to flare up again. I start to get acne
Right. So
coming through.
let me just focus on that for a second. So skin problems. You see, I am not convinced that you are not pre-diabetic, whatever they told you, because the reason why we fatten up is because we go through a process of diabetes. Diabetes is the process of fattening up. You get liver fat, begins with the liver fat, liver fatty disease, and then it begins to go everywhere else in the body. And the question is whether you had symptoms. Uh, and there are many possible symptoms that come with it. And depending on how long it's been going for, I mean, how long were you fat, obese, rotund?
Since I'd say since maybe 2021, so a good
So that's
10
not very
years.
long.
Right.
Oh, since you were 21.
Yeah, so I've been
Right.
overweight since so about 10 years. I've
Okay,
been
so
unhealthy.
10 years, 10 years is long enough to begin to damage the body.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll just give you symptoms because I was type 2 diabetic. I didn't know, but I know the symptoms.
Yeah.
And so, and this might be of interest to other people who listen to us, that when a person is pre-diabetic, there's a number of changes that begin to happen. I don't know whether they would happen if we'd never had um, vegetable oils. If we had never, because vegetable oils damage the epithelial cells of the body, and
Very good.
they're the ones that damage the mitochondria, the engine of the cells, the ones
Yeah.
that transform the energy. And so I don't know, because bears, they hibernate for a couple of months every year and they go diabetic. I mean, that is the diabetic process when you
Interesting.
sort of switch over from burning meat, fish, whatever it is that the bear eats, and then he sort of goes into the berries and he'll eat whatever he can. But the liver changes tack and begins to create fructose. And that fructose is what turns into fat.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happens is that you become lethargic, because that is how you put the fat on. Your body is trying to send you into hibernation mode so that you do not consume as many calories as before. Because if you
Right. Okay.
consume as many calories, you wouldn't be putting the fat on to go into hibernation. So your
Yeah.
body sort of changes gear and it says, okay, go lethargic, not so much energy. We're now going to accumulate the fat. But that's only for a couple of months and then they go back to normal. But you were for 10 years straight. I was for about 30 years nonstop.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen because of the seed oils, which the bear doesn't have, but because of the seed oils, we develop symptoms in the skin. It's like tags. They call them tags, little tags,
Skin tags.
skin tags.
Yeah.
You ever had any of those?
Yes, I have. Yeah, and I've always got rid of them by tying string around them,
Sure.
letting it become
Well,
dead
that is a
skin.
symptom. That is a symptom of diabetes.
I see. I didn't know that.
Allied, well, it's okay. Allied to the seed oils. Yeah. So what's happened is that the epithelial cells have become damaged. They're still functioning, but the sugar on top of that just gets to a point, and then poof, they go. It's the process of cancer, except they're not cancerous. They're simply
Right.
beginning to do their own thing on the skin. So they're benign. It's a benign growth.
Yeah.
But they come from that. Other things that can happen to people is they can get a dark discoloration, often on the legs. The clincher, the one to watch out for, is, well, has it begun to damage your kidneys? Now, this is really quite important, because if as a result of having been diabetic for long enough, is now begun to affect your kidneys, then you have to be careful as to the level of salt that you ingest. So there are many ramifications to this. I don't have any salt. Okay, I have no salt. My kidneys are damaged. My kidneys are healing, but it will take another year for me to heal. And this is quite a few years down the line. But my kidneys have been damaged for a long time, unbeknown to me in the past. And so if you suddenly stand up and you get lightheaded, if you get lightheadedness, that's because the blood isn't quite going. That's from the kidneys. If your legs swell up a little bit when you wear your socks, the tightness, you can see the
Yeah.
indentation. That's because you got fluid coming up in there. That's from the kidneys. So there are things
Interesting.
for you to watch out for, because if you do have any of those signs, my suggestion to you, contrary to what other people are saying, you need to stop eating all salt. People think that salt is good for us. Salt is not good for us. We don't actually need salt. There is salt in meat. There is salt in vegetables. We don't need to take extra salt on top. People say, oh, well, I need salt because when I exercise, I sweat. And, the sweat is salty. I'm getting rid of the salt. No, you're getting rid of the excess salt. Yeah,
Okay.
the body is the skin is the third lung, but it's designed to get rid of things which are not good for us, which is not able to get rid of otherwise. So when you sweat, with the sweat, you get rid of things that your body doesn't need, uh, unless you do have problems with the kidneys in certain ways. I mean, there are times when if you don't have enough carbs in the kidney, then your electro
Right.
electro electrolyte balance can go off, and then the kidneys expel it. But that is something we can talk about in a minute if you like. But that's not what I'm getting at the moment.
Yeah.
What I'm getting at the moment is that if you have had damage in the kidneys and you've had symptoms of that, then my recommendation is stop eating all salt. There is enough salt in the meat.
Okay. That's weird.
Okay.
That's interesting because that's fascinating because I think you're the only person doing carnivore that has said salt's bad for you and that you shouldn't eat salt. Whereas the people I follow all say season with salt is not a problem. So that's interesting. I mean,
It's
I
not a
might,
problem if you've got healthy kidneys.
yeah. So I guess
Okay.
if you've got unhealthy kidneys, it's a case of cut out salt. But if you've got healthy kidneys, don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, up to a certain level, obviously.
So
You,
how
you
would you
know,
say I can find out how healthy my kidneys are? How would I know about
okay. Well, hold on a minute. I will tell you. Your kidneys are relatively healthy. Okay. So you haven't generated enough damage in you after 10 years. Um, but there's a number of telltale signs. Like if in the cold, if your nose strips, if you get a nose strip in the cold, you just go out and the weather goes down to 10 centigrade, and you're outside for half an hour and you get a drip on your nose. That's a weakness in the kidneys. If you eat too much salt and you get the swelling in your legs, I you look at the band of your sock, that's a sign that your kidneys are not dealing very well with the fluids. If you get dizzy, that's a sign of your kidneys are not very healthy. If you suddenly stand up, you feel a bit dizzy, your blood pressure is not quite adequate. That comes from the kidneys. If if you get bleeding noises, a bleeding nose, or blood blisters, again, that also can come from the kidneys. So those are sort of like the major sort of symptoms. It doesn't mean to say your kidneys are not working. It simply means your kidneys are not working that well. Yeah,
to the
and
extent that
then you need to take extra precautions. Um,
interesting. That's
yeah.
interesting. I've had the swelling of the bands on my ankles from the socks. I've definitely had that.
So
Um,
that's definitely happened for you, but it may not necessarily mean that you haven't gone over that critical point. But if you get that in the feet, in the legs, in the ankles, my suggestion to you would be, I experimented with the salt, and the people that say, oh, you should have 3 grams a day of salt. Others say more. Others say, well, it doesn't matter. I I am of the firm opinion it does matter, and you might be able to get away with because your kidneys are healthy and they can deal with it. It's not a big deal. And salt is very tasty, let's face it. um, so if you really want it and your body can cope with it, hey, no biggie. but technically speaking, you don't need it.
No.
I once saw a podcast of an American woman, a rancher, and she'd been carnivore for about 25 years.
Wow.
And she said she'd never touched salt. 25 years. She never bothered with salt. It wasn't a biggie for her. I haven't touched salt for nearly a year now. And it's not a biggie.
And
In
what
fact, I
difference?
tell you what happens. I tell you what happens. I'm more in touch with the taste of the meat, because the salt disguises the taste of the meat. But the meat is very flavorsome. Not if you cook it to death. Clearly,
No.
you want to have your meat almost raw.
Yeah.
Just a quick one way and the other, and that's
Bloody
it.
as
You want it to
well.
be,
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially steak, nice and rare. Yeah.
yeah, very rare. You want it to be really bloody. Uh, you digest it better,
Yeah. And it's tastier.
and it's tastier. Yeah. So, I mean, we all have to find our way, but it's good to have some barometer of people who've gone your journey before you.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
there's so many different people, but a lot of people, they haven't been type 2 diabetic before, and so they can get away with a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people who they've gone into it quite young, and they haven't really eaten a lot of the bad foods, like spinach,
Yeah.
for example, or almonds, or what's the other one? Potatoes and sweet potatoes. There's a lot of foods which are very high in oxalic acid.
Yeah.
And if you go cold turkey, which I think from the way you spoke, you sort of have, um, that can be dangerous to your kidneys. If you,
That's what they advise to wean onto keto before going carnivore, didn't they? Say, keep the greens in at least and then wean your way in. But I just went straight onto meat and eggs.
and I mean, did you used to eat a lot of spinach, or was it just
I used to eat a lot
manufactured
of
food?
carbs, not greens as such. I've never really. I've eaten them. I'll eat them, but it wasn't something I made in part of my daily diet. But I did eat a lot of saturated, fatty, things like potato wedges and jacket potato and frozen potato products, basically just a lot of chips and stuff like that. And I just think, well, adding greens to it, that's fine. That counteracts it. It doesn't. It doesn't matter if you're still eating fries, French fries. They're so bad, and just a lot of bread and frozen breaded chickens and stuff like that. Greens wise, no, I was never a huge greens eater, but I did eat a lot of carbohydrates. And I think rice, I had this not long ago where I cooked a meal for my girlfriend and her kids, and we had rice with it. And it's the first time I'd eaten rice in, 6 months. And I ate that rice, not a huge amount, just, a standard portion that you get with a curry or something like that. And it wrote me off. My blood sugar went straight through the roof, and I felt my insulin levels like raising so much. I was tired, I was bloated, I was sitting there like, oh, I regret eating that. And it wrote me off for about a week. I felt so foggy, brain foggy for a week, and I didn't realize how bad, especially white rice, not just rice in general, but white rice, how bad it is and how much it spikes your insulin levels, especially if you've gone carnivore or keto for so long and then you eat white rice. Oh my God, that really didn't do me any favors. So that confirmed to me, yeah, me and rice, we're two magnets. We don't get on at
Mm.
all. But I did used to eat a lot of rice, and I was always tired and always brain foggy, and I always assumed it was. I didn't assume it was rice doing that, because I've always had it instilled in me that rice is good. Chicken and rice, yeah, it's the perfect meal. It's really not. Lean chicken, I mean, lean meat in general. I don't eat lean meat. I won't. That's why I don't really eat chicken much anymore. If I do, it's wings or thighs for the skin. I need fatty meat. So I love my pork bellies and my pork steaks, but the meat I eat, I always make sure I get the fattiest cut of meat I can get, or beef mince, and I drink the fat from that, because the fat is so important. And we've always been told for so many years, low fat, eat low fat, fat's going to kill you. And there's not actually any evidence to suggest that fat's bad for you. It's all just, it's the food pyramid, isn't it?
You know, I would recommend that rather than pork fat, that you go for beef fat,
I love my beef
suet,
fat.
dripping.
Beef drippings, yeah. I do love them.
That's
It's a bit more expensive than lard, but I do love beef drippings.
I'm not sure how much more it is. I mean,
It's about £1
I,
more if you want to be specific. It's about £1 more. So
is
from
it?
principle, if you're stocking up on fat, then
Well,
it's cheap.
how much are you paying for the beef dripping?
Lard,
The pig fat, the lard.
yeah, it's about 50p a block from Tesco. Big old block like that.
Yeah,
50.
you're probably right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it is more expensive, but in the same way that, I mean, you now recognize that seed oils, vegetable oils, are not good for us. Yeah, you
No.
read about it.
Especially sunflower oil. That is not good.
None of
Really
them.
good.
None of them are any good. None of them.
No.
But the problem with pig fat is that they give them soya products.
What feeds the pigs?
And the pig, yeah, this is made with soya. It's got protein, but it's got soya fat, loads of soya fat. And soya fat is seed oil fat. It's the wrong fat.
That I didn't know.
And that accumulates in the pigs. You know, the ingredient is linoleic acid. Linoleic acid is what's in all these seeds. But you know, we also created, you know, we a typical cow has between 1% and 2% of linoleic acid within its makeup. And we ourselves create a little bit, and we do need it. The body does use it for chemical reactions. Not sure whether it's just hormonal, but it needs it. But it's like minuscule amounts, tiny amounts. And the pigs which are reared in this way, they can have up to 35% of linoleic acid in the fat.
Is that in
The
just
thing
lard, or is it the fat on the meat as well?
that's the fat of the pig. That's the pig fat, whether it's on the outside or in the muscle, wherever it is. You know, that's 35%. So what that means is that if you eat that, you may as well be having vegetable oil as well.
Right, okay. That I didn't know. Well, what's interesting is from tomorrow, I'm doing something I'm calling Meat March, where I'm just giving something to go. I'm going extremely strict, where I'm going pure lion, but I'm also going to have eggs. But I'm going to go from tomorrow throughout all of March. I'm just going to eat beef and eggs. So whether that's minced beef, whether that's steak, processed, meatballs. I've checked the ingredients, obviously. If they've got flour in them, hell no. If it's burgers and they've got, certain flours to stabilize them, no, not touching them. But mainly steak and minced beef. I want to go full lion. So what I'll do is, because you've now mentioned that, I'll stick with beef drippings as well, just for a month, just to see what the results are at the end of March, just to see if there's been any difference in the results I've had so far, where I've integrated pork and pork fat as well.
Well, let me say that the problem with linoleic acid is that when it gets into the body in large quantities, it gets into the epithelial cells as well as other cells, but primarily the epithelial cells because they're the first line, and they then corrupt the mitochondria. It's a bit like, if you've got a diesel car and you add petrol to that diesel car, you bugger the engine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's the same with the cell, except our cells are so much more versatile. So what happens then is that we bugger the engine and we cannot burn the fat very well, but we can burn the sugar, the carbs. And then it's a vicious cycle all the way down to zero. So, and the linoleic acid in our bodies has got a half-life of somewhere between 5 and 7 years. So even though you stop today, those benefits will not truly become apparent till about 7 years into the future. And you'll know that it's true because you'll be able to go and sunbathe without burning.
And is that a hill you're willing to die on? Is that something you're guaranteeing?
Is the truth? Absolutely. It's true for me. Okay, so I'm Spanish, I've got darker color, blah, blah, but I still used to burn if I stayed too long in the sun.
Yeah.
I don't burn now, I just go dark.
Wow.
My wife, she's English, sort of fair hair. In theory, she should burn. She doesn't burn. She goes brown now.
She eats predominantly beef or just fully beef, or?
That's because we don't have the seed oils.
Right.
We don't have the vegetable oils. Anywhere, nowhere in our diet. We're totally cut it off and have done so for many years.
Wow, okay.
Because it's that. You see, the skin is composed of epithelial cells. You know, we rub the skin all the time. The skin is being thrown off constantly. So that means that we need to be able to regrow the skin cells. They need to multiply quickly.
Course,
and they go various layers, and you get the dead ones on top, but at the bottom, you've got stem cells, which are multiplying constantly. Yeah, that's the stem cells, which are the epithelial cells, which are within the skin, but not just on the skin on the outside, but, you know, within your lungs, within your mouth, within vagina, anything that connects to the outside from any orifice is composed of epithelial cells. And they're and because of the way that they work, they draw a lot of energy from the body to do what they need to do. And anyway, so the ones on the skin, when they get damaged, make us susceptible to sunlight. This is what we've been here for millions of years. No one's ever had a problem. No one ever needed to go to a pharmacy and sort of give me some anti-whatever for the sun. Yeah, UV protection. This is only in the last 100 years.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
It's new. We've never needed it.
No,
because we started using the seed oils.
Me and my girlfriend were, funnily enough, talking about this not long ago about sun cream and sunscreen. And saying, you know, we looked into the numbers of skin cancer and the rise. And as you've said, the last 100 years, obviously it's shot up and we're using these sun creams. I'm not going to say sun cream's bad because I don't know. I'm not an expert and I haven't experimented with it. But there is always the possibility that, yeah, sun cream may not be as effective as we think. And as you've said, we're removing these oils. If you don't burn in the sun from cutting these oils out, we don't need sun cream. So in 7 years, I'm going to be contacting you and let you know if it's worked or not.
The other thing is eye sensitivity.
Yeah.
Because epithelial cells are there as well. The eye sensitivity. The same thing. I used to be really sensitive to sunlight. I needed to wear sunglasses all the time. You know, whenever I walked outside, I always had sunglasses, 2 or 3 actually, because one got broken.
When you're wearing them all the time.
I don't wear them now. I've got them in the car for anti-glare.
Yeah.
You know, there are those special times when you get a lot of glare on the road, and I'll put them on for those couple of minutes. But that's it. I don't wear them. I don't need them. My eyes can take a lot of sunlight now. They never used to. So these are changes.
Tell me, Tell me about your diet. How long have you been carnivore, and what do you eat typically? What are you quite restrictive? Do you only eat beef? Tell me about what your diet is.
I am so boring.
Carnivore is a boring diet, but it's not a diet because you can
So
eat as much as you
this
please.
is this is a bowl. It's not a particularly huge bowl.
Yeah,
I
looks
have
like a
two
big
bowls of
plate.
this a day. Just two bowls of that. It's not a mounting above it. It's just dead level with it.
And what is it?
And what's what?
Well, what's the food? What is it you're eating?
Well, what I food is my own cow.
The
So
beef.
and so I just eat beef. Uh, and this year we managed to dispose of the cow at the right time,
Oh, great,
and it was very fatty. Oh,
lovely.
it's too
Grass fed.
fatty. Oh yeah, totally,
Yeah,
organically, everything.
beautiful.
But for the first time, my God, and I find that I eat a lot less now
Yeah,
because the fat is so satisfying.
and you're just not hungry.
Um, you're not hungry now. So
No,
two bowls a day is fine. I eat those within a 6 hour window or so. So I'll have
nice.
one about 8 to 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'll have my dinner for around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Um,
Is that steak you're having?
yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
I'll have a little bit of cheese. I have so in between those two meals, I have a cup of bone broth,
nice.
and I have some sheep cheese because I cannot. I'm allergic to goats and cows. It's the only one I can actually eat with impunity.
I see.
So I have a bit of that, and that's it. And I have water. I mean, this what I've been drinking, whole water. That's all.
Yeah.
I have nothing else. This is my whole diet.
And how long have you done this for?
Bloody boring.
No, yeah, but you're alive. You feel better than you've ever felt in your life.
I do. I do.
So who cares if
I'm
it's boring,
70.
mate? You know,
I'm 70 years old now. So, and I
you're
was quite
70.
sick when I was 60. Yeah.
Mate, I thought you
I
were
was,
about 50. Like, fair play. Like, how long have you
no,
done this
you're,
diet
you're
for?
just judging me now. You're just trying to make me feel good. You're succeeding. But
How long have you done this diet for then, for you to have such good results?
um, well, I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I started when I was 55, and I didn't know at the time that I was type 2 diabetic, but I soon found out the hard way. And I began to discover things, and I began by eating salads, um, cutting out the sugar, and that brings its own problems, especially when your kidneys are really weak. And I began to get lots of nosebleeds and all manner of things. And I also had damage in my intestines, just to complicate matters. So loads of skin problems, loads of things were wrong with me. And I also heard about the um, the meat diet from the Peterson family initially, and I began to work my way through different things. And God, I had a terrible time. I really did. And gradually, I worked my way to chicken and broccoli exclusion diet,
Just
just trying
like
to get
your
rid of all the
daughter did, yeah.
symptoms. Yeah, and I did that for a while, and I still had lots of problems. And finally, I went onto the carnivore diet, and I suppose I've been doing the carnivore diet for about 7 years, but I was still experimenting. Oh, I could have
Yeah,
a few bananas, or I could have a bit of fruit, and it just didn't work. So pure carnivore, 5 years now.
great.
Yeah, pure
Fantastic.
carnivore.
And you've
Um,
reversed all these issues that you've had with your body and your mind.
yeah.
Do you not
No,
find as well you don't get your moods more regulated as well? So you don't get as stressed or as angry as easily? Because that's what I've found as well. Things used to really annoy me quite easily, but now it happens sometimes, but on average, I'm a lot more focused. I'm a lot happier. I'm not as stressed. I don't get as irritated as easily.
Well, that's certainly true, but whether that's because of the meat, I don't know. Certainly in my
I think it's
50s,
because of cutting
I
the
could
carbs
lose.
out. I think it's
Well,
that
it
and
could
sugar.
be. It could be. I certainly could lose the plot. Full moon, I could certainly lose the
Yeah.
plot. um, but I like to think that I'm more emotionally balanced now because I dealt, most of us are emotionally suppressed. There's always
Yes.
one, two emotions that we struggle with,
Especially in
whether,
this where it's social media based and where it's an era of trying to one up each other. And it's a very egotistical era we live in. So it's difficult to regulate your emotions.
well, that is true. That is true. But most of us carry something from our childhood.
Yes, definitely.
It's in the background. It affects us. It
Yeah,
affects
I
it
absolutely
affects
agree.
how we view the world, how we view other people. And I mean, for me, all the changes happened together. And it wasn't until I was 60 that I dealt with the biggest. The biggest one of all was to do with my mother, childhood, orphanage, um, a lot of grief, really
Right.
stashed away deep down inside me. But once I dealt with those big potatoes, if you like, deep in my psyche, I'm more chilled. I'm more
Yeah.
chilled. I will say though that when you do go on a carnivore diet, that you might still need to supplement yourself.
Yes.
Um,
Definitely.
you might need you might need to have things like
Vitamins.
well, certain vitamins. It depends on your level of damage. I mean, like
I
for
need
me,
this D3 and K2.
well,
And
you
it's
don't need
full.
you won't need the K2, but you'll certainly need the D3. Until you go under the sun in the summer months. But winter months, we all need vitamin D3,
Yeah.
and the vitamin D3 and the linoleic acid are totally linked together because the fat that we accumulate under here, vitamin D3 is fat soluble, and so if what we've got is linoleic acid fat under the skin, which is affecting the cells as well. That whole process interferes with our ability. I mean, this is why we burn, because we cannot protect ourselves from the sun. And I don't know for a fact, but I do wonder whether that also interferes with the cycle of acquiring vitamin D3, which it must do because if you're
Possibly.
burning, you're not going to stay out there very long. And if you put barriers on, well, that's going to stop the vitamin D3 from growing inside you because you're stopping the ultraviolet rays from getting through to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so vitamin D3 for sure. But there's a couple of other things like
Iodine.
iodine.
Yep. There you
Yeah,
go.
iodine.
Apparently, a phenomenal amount, an astronomical amount of people are deficient in it, which I found out through Ken Berry. And he talked about how crazy, especially in America, it's probably because of their diet. You know how Americans like to eat. Um, there's so many people that are deficient in iodine. I'm going to start taking it as well. Apparently, it's better to take as a spray than as a pill. Kind of like the D3, it's better to spray it under your tongue for some reason.
Um, I take it as drops. I just take one drop a
Yeah,
day.
yeah, drops under the tongue. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, actually, I put it on my foot. What I do nowadays, I've got a whole lot of vitamins that I take
yeah,
because I'm still damaged and I still need to repair. So rather than take the capsules, which are made with cellulose, I just open them up, pour everything on top of the meat, and I just eat it.
interesting. Okay, that's new. Just spread it on top of your steak. There you go.
I do, and it tastes fine. Tastes absolutely fine.
Yeah. Not fair enough. I was replacing
I
salt
tell
with
you,
iodine. Me.
I tell you something else that I need, which surprised me, is vitamin B12,
Yes.
because you would assume that there's plenty of vitamin B12 in the meat.
There's not enough. No.
Well, I mean, my cows, they're totally healthy, grass-fed. So theoretically, because the vitamin B12 is created in the cecum of the cow, in this is where they ferment the
Yeah.
fibers. So there's an organ. I mean, in human beings, this is why we're not herbivores, whatever people think. We used to have a chamber where we would ferment the fiber,
Yeah.
which now is just a vestige, is the appendix. So human beings, they don't have a chamber to ferment the fibers, but the cows do, like many other herbivores, most herbivores, and the the fermentation process creates the protein and the fat for the cow. You know, the bare basic amino acids, um, and the fatty acids. But the bacteria also, as part of the fermentation process, creates vitamin B12. So in theory, the cows have plenty of vitamin B12 and it's plenty in the meat. But I find that I don't. And for me, I think it's more to do with my level of damage. So even 5 years down the road, I still need to supplement with vitamin
Yeah.
B12. And I have a bit of liver now and then. And you kind of have, you can have too much liver because of the purines.
Yes. Yeah.
But just a little bit now and then, but it's still not sufficient vitamin Bs for me. So I supplement.
Well, speaking of
So,
liver, what I've
yeah.
started doing actually to get my fix of iron and everything in the liver, I've started to slice it up into tiny capsule size little bits of meat, and I've been freezing it. And then when I break my fast and I'm going to eat, before I start eating my meal, I'll take maybe 6 or 7 of those and just swallow them like pills. And that I'm already noticing this difference, and my iron levels are nice and steady now, because you can get organ meat supplements through the ACE supplements, and they are really good, but it is 40 quid for a pot, and you take 6 of those a day, so that's not going to last very long.
You don't want to take organ meats every day because of the purines, and you can easily overload on copper and God
Yeah,
knows what else,
I tend
vitamin
to take.
A.
I don't really take them daily. I take them sometimes. I take about 6 of these little amounts, maybe every other or every 3 days or so. I don't do it every single day. I know you're not
Right.
supposed to. Isn't it recommended organ meats once a week?
Um, I don't know whether that is a truth. I have a bit of organ meat, but I have very little. I have a bit of heart, I have a
Yeah,
bit of kidney, a bit of liver, and I have a bit of each, roughly around once a week. So they once every 3 weeks, the others come
yeah,
online, roughly. But I mean, it depends. It's so difficult. It depends what you actually need. We don't
yeah,
all need the same things. You have to trust yourself. I went
yeah,
through a period when I was cutting down. I wasn't having that much fat, but I was cutting down on my protein, and I found myself dreaming about wanting to eat more. Our bodies, if we don't have enough, our bodies actually do tell us
it tells you.
you
Yeah,
need more
eat.
food. You need more food. Yeah. And it'll come up in your dreams from your subconscious.
Yeah, it's we don't understand how important it is, eating, but eating the proper way. And I think what's happened is we've become this. It, it's the society, because we're surrounded by it all the time. If you look everywhere you go, you walk through London, it's McDonald's, KFC, Burger King, all these new restaurants that come out, Nando's. and we get told by influencers all the time, eat this, eat lean, and we listen to them because, let's be honest, most of us are stupid. So we've gone into society where we eat for fun. I don't eat for fun now. I don't take pleasure in eating. I eat to live. And that's why with carnivore, I eat maybe sometimes just one big amount of meat a day on a plate. And that I see it as medicine. I see it as I'm eating it to function. I don't see it as I'm going to enjoy this. Although I do love eating steak, I love eating meat. So it's the perfect diet for me because I've always been a big meat lover. But when we eat carbohydrates, when we eat chips, when we eat pizza, when we eat sandwiches, I think we don't understand we're doing it purely for pleasure. We're doing it for mouth pleasure. We're not doing it because we actually need to eat that. But with meat, it's so vital, especially fat. We need fat. But what we've been told for so long is don't eat fat, eat lots of vegetables. And I'm sorry, but the amount of vegans I have met that on the hottest day of the year, they're wearing a coat because they're cold. And I've said to them, you've not got enough red blood cells, mate. That's what it is. And they say, yeah, but I eat lots of spinach. And you just roll your eyes and you think, whatever, be cold then. Some people, there's just no helping. I mean, I'd recommend carnivore to anyone, but at the same time, I do it. I'd say do the research first and wean yourself onto it. Don't listen to me. If you listen to me, you're an idiot. I'm no expert. I'm not good. I'll say listen to Sal, speak to Sal. He'll get you. He'll tell you what you need to do.
the joke about spinach is that they're right. It does contain a lot of iron, but it also contains a lot of oxalic acid. And the oxalic acid will bind to the calcium and the iron. So the person eats that spinach, and as it goes into the system, it releases, it breaks up, and the calcium and iron will bind to the. This in a way is a bit of their saving grace because the oxalic acid is now binding to that iron and calcium, and that will get excreted. But any that comes into the body will bind to the calcium, the iron, the manganese, the vitamin B12, anything, inside the body, copper, anything inside the body. The oxalic acid is such a powerful magnet for all these minerals. It just sucks them into itself. So they're not doing themselves any favors. They may think that they're helping themselves, but in their ignorance, they're not. And, you hear of many people who are vegan for 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20. No, they all become sick. They become sick.
Yeah,
because they're missing the basic ingredients.
Yeah,
Like the human body, we need carnosine. It's a protein. It's in meat. Some people can produce it in themselves from other proteins, but not everybody can. So if you happen to be a vegan and you're the wrong vegan, then you're going down to hell.
The wrong vegan, because a lot of vegans in the West don't understand. They don't have the luxury of eating purely from the ground, so they eat these vegan alternative meals like vegan burgers and vegan ready meals, etc. Then read the ingredients. Oh, look, 90 ingredients for a burger. That isn't normal. And you look at what these ingredients are and all these chemicals in order to stabilize and to preserve these meat alternatives, these fake meats, these beetroot burgers and soya and seitan and soy. It's not stuff you're supposed to constantly put in your body. Well, you shouldn't be putting it in your body in the first place, but doing it constantly, and they wonder why they're getting extremely sick after 20 years. I understand vegans that are vegans ethically for those reasons, animal cruelty, etc. I get their mentality there, but when they're doing it and say it's for diet, is it though? Because in the long run, you're going to get ill. Let's
You
face
know,
it.
that is such a crucial thing about human beings. Animals don't question what they eat.
No.
They eat what they need. A lion doesn't think, oh, I don't know, I can't eat that antelope or whatever. I'm hungry, your meat.
Yeah, your dinner.
Okay. The cow, there's grass, that's what I want. They want the grass. So they have an impulse, that's what they want. And that's what makes them feel good. Now, what those animals do is they listen to their instincts, to their guts, to their inbuilt programming. Humans also have inbuilt programming, but people who say, I will eat this or that because of what I think, they're now applying mental concepts to override
Emotions.
what their body is telling them I need. When I was in my late 20s, I was vegan and I was getting sick. And after 6 months, I was dreaming about fish. It was in my dreams all the time. And you know what? I said to myself, there must be a reason why I'm dreaming about fish. So I bought some fish and I felt a lot better. My heart stopped palpitating for
Fatty
starters.
fish. I do love fatty
So
fish.
the
Salmon.
point is, we do need certain things and we cannot go, we do it, but we do it at the expense of our bodies. If I make choices based on my mind, based on my beliefs, which is programming, you've been programmed by someone. If my wife, she loves animals. She's always loved animals since she was little. She's always been surrounded by loads of pets. She lives for animals, and she's always eaten meat. She's always loved vegetables, but she's always eaten meat. And yes, she knows about this, that about the cows.
Yeah.
And when we first came here, we had the land. I said, look, I want my own cows. I want to eat my own meat. And she was doing some training to do with working with animals, the trust technique, they call it. And she went to the head guy and, oh, I'm really worried. I'm really concerned. I don't know what to do. My husband, he wants to kill his own cows. He wants to eat his own meat.
You mean like a human being, yeah? Like a farmer, like a hunter?
So, well, like I'm not a hypocrite.
No.
Okay. I love animals, but I need meat. That is want to keep me healthy. So I'm not a hypocrite. I will eat this and I will take responsibility for what I need to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, so she went to this guy and kudos to this guy. He said, you have to honor his wish. At least he's honest with himself. You might not want to do this, but the years have gone by, and now she loves the cows. She goes to the cows. She spends time with the cows. The cows respond to her very nicely, and she still eats the meat. And
It tastes too good, man.
yeah, so my point is, we need what we need,
Yes.
and all this mental belief system. And the biggest nonsense in the modern world is when people don't know what they need to eat.
Yeah.
They need to ask an expert. Tell me what I need to eat, almighty expert. What cow goes and asks an expert as to what it needs to eat? It's a joke. It's a joke.
No, you're absolutely right.
Every animal knows what they need to eat.
Yeah. And people go into influencers and these well, you know, these names in the fitness industry who tell them, yeah, protein powders and eat these protein bars and you know, eat oats for breakfast. It's like, oh god,
I'll
and
tell you
people
something.
fall for this, man.
If you get a young baby and you give them some meat and you give them some vegetables, no condiments, no nothing, just the natural thing, they'll eat the meat, but you're always working hard. Oh, you got to eat your vegetables. You got to eat your vegetables. You're shoving the vegetables down their throat.
Yeah. Just eat some of your peas, please.
My ex-wife, when she was pregnant, she'd been a vegetarian for 20 odd years, like I had. And she came to me and says, I don't know what to do, but I'm getting cravings to eat meat.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Your body's telling you you're missing some basic ingredients.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I said was, you know, if your body is asking for that, we got to eat it. So I started buying chickens and whatnot. And we couldn't quite make it up to red meat, but we started working our way up the ladder.
Baby steps, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But, you know, you've got to follow your gut's instinct.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
listen to your body.
I have this with my partner all the time. She definitely she's swaying towards carnivore. She's done keto a fair few times, and she's swaying towards carnivore for seeing my results. But she questions a lot the longevity of life when you're eating carnivore, and unfortunately it's not been a mainstream diet long enough for people to know the possibility of longevity. But what I tell her and anyone else that questions the longevity is, I don't care about longevity. Right now, I'm living in the now, and I know it's working for me, and I feel amazing. So longevity is something to worry about in the future.
Okay, let's
I
look
do
at it the other way
know
around.
longevity of eating carbohydrates and sugar all the time leads to a quick, sudden death. So I avoid that. I know that don't work. So longevity of
You know,
carnivore, whatever.
during the Middle Ages, and for many years too, you know, the people who had lots of meat were the rich people. The poor people ate bread.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Bread and
that was the
water.
staple diet. Yeah, the staple diet. And, you know, if you could go and poach some meat, you know, you did your best. People didn't live a long time
No.
unless they were rich. You know, we do have people from the Middle Ages who lived till about 80, 85, but these were all rich people. The peasants, you know, 40, 50, 60, 70, if they were really lucky. And I suppose it would all depend on how much meat they managed to get and how much, yeah. Like I said, the Egyptians, short lifespan. The Romans, I don't know, but it depends how much meat they ate, I suppose.
But
Uh,
also, this was without modern medicine. This was without modern medicine and modern
well, yeah.
health techniques. So, and if they were living that long without the modern medicine just by eating meat, well, need you say more? But people won't listen to this. They say, "Oh no, you've got your history
All right.
wrong."
Let me tell you something. I had a book from, it was American Indians, and it was a book of letters that the chiefs of American Indians, they said to Franklin or whoever was at the top in those days. And I was always struck by one particular letter. And this chief said, I'll be paraphrasing because I don't recall exactly how it went, but he said, when the French came, they began to give us their brandies and their breads, the sweet breads, the flour breads. And we noticed that our elders used to live to 150 years. But over the generations, our lifespan has been decreasing and down to about 100, 120. for the elders. So their elders, the American Indians elders who used to survive on bison, on meat, and a few roots in the winter, they had long lives. They lived a long life. So they were as close as you get to carnivore, and they had a long lives.
Yeah.
So before the West came in and corrupted them with with their flowers and their wheat and their cakes and their wines.
Interesting.
So we do have information that people
Yeah.
did live longer. Uh,
Do you know much about blue zones?
who?
Blue zones.
What? I have no idea what that is.
So blue zones are parts of the world where supposedly they live by a purely vegan diet, but they somehow live to 100, between 100 and 120.
I believe
Um,
it when I see it.
well, this is the thing. My partner does a lot of research on it, but I recently watched a video with Ken Berry talking to someone who has visited blue zones a lot. Really, of what a lot of what we're told about blue zones is a lie. They do eat a lot of meat, and their vegetables that they cook in, they use lard, they use pig fat. So again, there's such a mixture of information online, and it's one of those things where I think things like blue zones or Native American history, you need to actually go there and actually speak to people that know what they're talking about in order to determine what these people are eating and how they're living to such a ripe age. Because what we're told, for years we've been told, again, eat your greens, eat your carbs, eat your potatoes, but we're all still dying so young, and we're the most ill we've ever been in history. We've got so many problems. Look in America. Look how many people are morbidly obese, living with diabetes or living with lymphedema. And I know someone with lymphedema, and I've tried telling her, look, because she's seen me, where's all your weight gone? I've gone, look, please give carnivore a go. Just do it for a month. Just 1 month, eat nothing but meat and eggs. See how you feel. They say, oh, I just don't really like meat. And it's like, this isn't about enjoyment. This is about helping yourself. When someone is really unhealthy and overweight and they start going to the gym, they're not enjoying going to the gym straight away. No one is. It's when you get into that routine and start to love it. So it's the same with eating meat. It's the same with going carnivore. Changing your lifestyle begins with changing your diet. And that's what I'm learning anyway. I've started to work out now because I've hit this target weight where I've started lifting, and I love lifting now. I really get into it, and you can feel, it's just feeling that ache the next day of your muscles burning from doing a bit of lifting. And carnivore definitely helps that because of the effect it has on your muscles.
Well, when during the COVID days at the beginning, 20,
Long distant memory, yeah.
yeah, well, in 1920, the beginning, that December, I was one of the first people. We'd been to Kenya, and on the way back, I caught it, and it floored me for a month. And after a month, my wife complains. She says, "Gosh, you got all man's legs now. You're all sort of skinny." And I'd lost a lot of weight. I'd lost nearly a stone in weight, and all of that was because I didn't have much fat. All of that was my protein, my muscle mass had gone right down. Now they say that once you get past a certain age, you start to lose like 5%, 10% of your body mass per year, unless you keep it up.
Yeah.
So you have to work. You have to work at it. Well, I don't know to what extent that is true, because I go to the gym 3 times a week. I do CrossFit.
Nice.
And in this last 3 or 4 years, since I had that, I've put muscle mass on.
Interesting.
I'm a lot more bulky now. So eating meat, even though I am older, I have still bulked up. So okay, so I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm not trying to be,
No.
but I've put quite a bit of muscle mass on.
And you feel good.
Well, yeah, of course, absolutely.
Isn't that
So
what's important?
my point is that even as we get older, as long as we eat meat and we exercise, we put muscle mass on. And
Yeah.
the truest measure of health into old age is how much meat you've got on your body. Because what kills people in old age is that you suddenly go, because you dry up, because your body cannot draw on anything. You have
Yeah.
one illness, it sends you down and you're gone because you don't have enough resources to keep you going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard it somewhere. I don't know where it was. Something that you can keep going till 80, 95 with plenty of muscle mass. Um, there are people who do eat a lot of meat and who are now in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Don't know about 90s. Arnold Schwarzenegger must be getting close. He must be mid 80s. Although I
He's
heard
gone
that he
vegan,
suddenly
hasn't
decided to
he?
go on vegetarian or something. I think
Yeah,
it's lost
which
a
I found
plot.
really bizarre. But I think
But
he's one of these eco warriors, isn't he? So he thinks he's doing the right thing.
well, he had a heart attack. He had to have a stand-in many years ago.
Oh, did he? Well, he did eat probably a lot of
I think
carbs,
he was
didn't
doing
he?
steroids and God knows what else. Anyway,
Yeah, and
we
well,
don't
you
we
saw
don't
I've
know
seen a
enough
picture
about
of
it.
him in a shop in Walmart with just this trough full to the brim of these big old tubs of protein powder, and it's like, well, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but
Okay, so one last thing that's worth mentioning. You can have too much protein if you don't have enough fat.
yeah,
But as long as you have plenty of protein with fat, then you're unlikely to eat more than you need. Um, and it's worth bearing in mind that the the ordinary meat, as long as it's sort of marbled a bit, that's got fat in it.
yeah,
So you just need a little bit of supplement, and it may be enough. But you can play with that, but you do need to have the fat with the meat. I used to because before I learned to sort of have the cows killed at the right time of year, I had some at the wrong time of year, and they didn't have enough meat on them. If you kill them in March, February, March, well, they've just gone through winter. They don't have much fat on them. But if you kill them in November, then they're really fatty.
yeah,
Anyway, so I used to go and buy the beef dripping, and I would just
yeah.
put a bit of beef dripping on top of my meat, um, just to supplement me, and that used to work fine.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, from tomorrow, as I said, I'm going lion and giving that a crack for a month. I'm only eating beef, and I'm going to switch to beef drippings, and I'm going to stick with the salt for now until the end of the month. And if I'm really liking how I'm feeling after Lyme, then I'll wean myself off the salt and see if there's any difference there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to starting that tomorrow. Actually,
Well, your experiment
yeah,
would be to look at your legs now, look at the level of compression from the socks,
yeah,
keep going the way you are, and then you say, okay, now I'm going to experiment a month without it, and notice the level of compression.
yeah. That's a good shout. I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to start that tomorrow. I'll start with the salt, keep an eye, take some pictures, and then do a month without salt and just. I mean, I've no idea. I hear conflicting information about salt, but I'm always open to trying something new, and I'm open to always listening to a fresh new idea. So, your hypothesis that salt is pretty bad for us, and we should cut it out. I'm gonna do a month for that, and I love experimenting with my body now. So I'm gonna give that a crack and just see what happens.
People who take high blood pressure tablets, they then give them water tablets. And I have observed many older people who are in this situation, and they put loads of salt in their food. And then, of course, they need to take loads of high watt tablets
Yeah.
just to sort of compensate, because they start to build fluids in their legs and their abdomens. So anyway, nice speaking with you. And
Yeah, it's been great.
all the
Thank you
best.
very much for having me on.
We'll get together again sometime in the future once you've
Yeah.
had a bit more experimenting out there.
I think maybe in a month's time or so, after trying lion for a month and then maybe a month of no salt, I will. Maybe we should catch up again, do another talk, and we can go over the potential changes that I feel and that you might be able to see.
Happy to. Lovely. Lewis,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And